Okay, so we're going to get into some cybercrime statistics, and I know they just added some slides to this. From 2020 to 2025, spending on cybersecurity will exceed $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Wow, that's a pretty hefty number. If you can get even a slice of that, and by the way, all these companies pay a residual consistent with what the carriers are paying, right? So you go in there and you get a portion of that. That spend is right in your pocket. Small businesses lose on average $200,000 per ransomware incident due to downtime and recovery costs, and many go out of business. I think we've all seen these stories, right? Like, you know, this kind of hit home when I was meeting with my wife's cousins. They had a friend over their house who was running a scuba company, and he said that his business had gotten ransomwared, and they were about to literally close the business because all of their information was gone. They weren't going to pay the ransom, and they didn't have their database anymore. Every one of the customers they'd sold to over the last 15 years was gone. All of their information was gone. All their accounts receivable, everything that they had within their server was now gone. So this is real, right? Like, businesses go out of business, and I think the guy ended up turning the corner, you know, and rebuilding his whole database and, you know, trying to get everything back, you know, organically from, you know, they didn't have backups, so they were just trying to piece it together through emails that they had. So they survive, but it's real. Businesses go out. Experts expect a cyber attack attempt every 11 seconds in 2021, which is twice the rate it was in 2019. 51% of organizations say they are ill-equipped to respond to a cyber attack. Look, guys, it's real. You know, you're seeing like family members running, you know, networks of companies. It's not adequate, and they're not doing a good job at it. So, again, tag these guys in. Cybercrime to cost the world $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. It's a big number. The average annual cost of cybercrime in the United States was $27.37 million US dollars in 2018. I mean, if you guys looked at some of those companies that got, you know, ransomware, I think, you know, was it Pilgrim or some, I forget some of the natural gas company and some of these other companies that had gotten hit, man, it took them out of business. I mean, they were literally like down until they actually paid the ransom to get back up. And by the way, you know, Eric, when you pay a ransom, what guarantee do you get?
You don't have a guarantee. So we've had clients in the past year that they'll pay it, and the insurance company will come in and they'll subsidize that for them, and they'll go and get the key to unencrypt their data, and that data is destroyed. It's completely dismantled. So even when you get the key, it's not a guarantee that you're gonna get clean data back. And the reality is that they're still in there. So they're still sniffing around. So like, this is, you know, and Dave
once
said
they know that they're going to get paid, then they just reattack. They leave a trail.
Right.
Well, one of the craziest hacks last year was CSI, the insurance company, because they got in and they were able to see what everybody's deductible was. And so they hacked the insurance company, and then they had a list of targets and knew exactly what they were willing to pay.
I'll throw a nugget at you guys. You can bring this into any meeting. We just did a roundtable with a bunch of CIOs of, call it, 500 to 1,000 person organizations. So their cyber insurance coming into 22 was re-rated at 600% higher than it was in 21. So the average mid-market enterprise right now had to reduce their coverage to reduce the premium so they could afford the business insurance on the cyber side. And the cyber insurance companies come out and said, in 20 and 21, they paid $3 out to 50 cents received. So if you think about how upside down these companies went, they're not going to let any organization go by with just hitting check boxes of, yeah, we're working on it, yeah, we're trying to get there, yeah, they're not going to pay the ransom anymore. You're done. You're cooked. So coming forward in 23 and 24, it's you either get these cyber programs in place or your insurance isn't going to pay the premium. And you guys are going to be sitting there and you're going to be stroking a couple $100K in Bitcoin. Hopefully you have it because it's not going to be worth much lately.
It's just like homeowners insurance here in South Florida.
It is.
I mean, right now, I mean, like
doubled.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, those free scams.
Those insurance companies, they're doing validation as part of those payouts, right? So, you know, okay, we want to use our coverage. Oh, well, let's validate to make sure you're doing what you say you're doing. Back to my whole evidence and validation thing. Oh, you really weren't doing these 3 things you said you were doing. We got a problem here.
If you're picking up on that, that's a prospecting tool.
They put the
Make
checks and
friends with
balances
the
in
insurance
place.
companies.
I mean, it's getting to the point though where every industry is required to have cyber insurance, right? I mean, it's happening in our industry as well. Certain carriers have come to us and said, hey, in order, for you to be able to sell our service, we need to know that you have cybersecurity insurance. Well, you have to get it, right? And if you can't qualify for cybersecurity insurance because you don't have all these check marks in place, then guess what happens? You don't get to sell that carrier. You don't get to sell that service that they're coming to you. So this is getting out there in every single industry across the business space. So let's get into some of the mission of Logically. Established in 2001, laser focus on cybersecurity. They develop specialized enterprise software systems, nationwide and global services. They have a Dell partnership since 2012. Their mission is to provide our clients with the tightest security posture, highest performing, and highest available IT networks. Acquired by national MSP Logically in March 2021. This is one of those that they acquired. Commitment to cybersecurity, right? So if this is a customer that you're looking at on the left-hand side, all their devices, wireless, servers, IoT users, their switch, their firewall goes out to the world. Obviously, the internet connection in there. The goal is to lock down every piece of this, right? And to use different ways to do it. All these guys will tell you there's not one way that, one magic bullet that takes care of security. You have to hit it on a number of different fronts because there's a lot of different aspects to how this goes down. So these guys they have, when they went over this, they have a net promoter score, which they're extremely happy with. It's 72% of customers. So what that means is that customers are happy with Logically when they use their service. So this just goes into kind of how many experts they have within their team that are trained in all these different things, right? So again, you can't just have one person on your team that knows every single thing about every single company, right? You have to have experts across your business. Here's some of the logos that they have. If you see, Eric, cover your eyes here, right? Like, don't take it. So these guys get into some big accounts. And again, it's just the old story, right? Like, you have to be on top of this stuff. If you're not, what's going to end up happening is you're going to get a breach. You're going to have a problem. So, companies are starting to become more aware of it. But we're at the forefront of this right now. We really are. We're at the very front of this thing. So if you embrace it now, you can capture your share of that $112 trillion spend. So they use Sentry XDR 360 powered by CCON and AI SIM. So these are just some of the things that go into how they protect a customer's network, right? Firewall servers, O365 email servers, switch stack, cloud apps. It all comes in, it gets scanned, it comes out. They make sure that like everything within the customer's environment is safe. I'm not going to go into Sentry XDR and all the different things it does. But the moral of the story right here is they're doing a comprehensive look at a customer's network, right? So they're going into every single vulnerability, endpoint detection, looking for any anomalies, threat intelligence that they run. They use artificial threat intelligence too. So again, it's like the guy sitting in the air traffic controller, like Eric was saying, looking for something out of the ordinary on the tarmac. Plane's going the wrong way. Hey, that looks unusual. Investigate it. But somebody has to be looking for this stuff. If you're not, then these guys get in and they just keep going further and further and further. Organically built, AI-driven, real-time correlation, behavior modeling, ransomware detected early, auto remediation. So look, guys, the reality is if you don't have this stuff in place, these guys get into your network and they just continue to do bad things, right? Like they get rid of your backups, they delete all the backups, they, take them so that you can't, even get your information. So finding them early is the key, right? Because what happens when they're in your network? The longer they're in there.
Yeah, so the average criminal, once they're in, so they'll sit in there 30, 60, 90, 6 months. And what they're doing is they're watching your trends. They don't want to stick out. They want to watch, and I'll give you an example. We had a very large retailer who was buying all of their goods at the end of the month. And they were pushing out 5, 10, 15, 20 million, and it's all smaller increments. So what this threat attacker did is he was actually sending himself 5, 6, 7, 800 using all random numbers, but hundreds of thousands every month before it was caught. So what these guys are doing is they're trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. They're sitting in the weeds, they're watching the way the business naturally operates, and they're not just going to come out and be like, 20 million bucks. They're going to sit in there forever. And they want to just keep funneling you guys slow so they don't get caught. That's the whole plan. So sometimes they don't even pop up for 3 months, 2 months. They want to see your trends first, and then they build their attack.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and just another question. You mentioned about the SIM, you gave an analogy on that now. You mentioned there's people that are looking at that. Is that the SOC, or is there any other?
Yep, good question. So the SIM is the software that the security operations centers guys are watching. So the SIM is just software, that's the air traffic control software. That's
It's
all it
taking
is.
the inputs from all the different sources, right? Network devices, Office 365. So, the examples being, okay, a network device indicates that some type of port scan took place or an attack took place. Office 365 indicates that you just logged in from Europe. They're responding to all those alerts. The SIM is the software that aggregates all that data and alerts on the appropriate items.
You got
Now,
it.
if somebody, do they bring their own SIM? Do you have the SIM?
So as part of we have a SIM as a service that our SOC uses. So if you're using our SOC, you need to be tuned into our SIM.
Okay, it has to be with your SIM.
Yeah.
You can't bring another SIM. Okay.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, and I just saw it on one of these previous slides, but we also have a SOAR offering, so that's actually an automation component. So alert comes in, if it meets certain criteria, certain actions take place in an automated fashion. And we actually have some really cool case studies that our CTO did, but what it takes a human like 18 minutes to do happens in like 25 seconds.
If somebody invested already in the SIM, how hard is it to kind of pull that away? What kind of investment do they make into it?
So that
It depends. It depends on what it is, right? So the SIM stuff is actually reasonably complex. So if they buy a SIM, and if they've really built it out, like we have some regional banks and stuff we've worked with that almost could never figure out how to get it done because the ongoing development efforts are very expensive. You're basically building AI rules so that things happen, and you have to identify what they all are, right? So when you get the SIM as a service, it's a little bit of SIM in a box because we've built out all the rules and the alerts. But the majority of the time when we see customers who have invested in a SIM, it's not built out with the right level of configuration to provide value to them. And then on top of that, the employees that they have watching it go home at 5 o'clock. So what's the point?
That's the thing, right? So you can buy it out of a box, just like that. Well, the government entity is a little bit different. They bought this product and then their MSP never implemented it. But if you buy it yourself, somebody's got to be on top of it, right? You have to have the resources, to actually. It's like buying a yacht and you don't know how to drive a boat, right? Like you need a yacht captain to drive the boat. Well, the yacht captain is the guy who's the IT guy, right? So you can't just buy this stuff and then hope it's going to do it itself. It just doesn't work like that, right? Or at least it's not going to be effective. So what's the next steps when you have an opportunity? Many of you guys in this room know Carla Rorty. She is at Logically. Also, Liz Lederer is there as well. They are running a spiff too, which is kind of unique in the business. So if you have a 2-year agreement customer, you're going to get a 1x. So if it's a $10,000 deal, they didn't cap this, by the way. So you come across a $100,000 opportunity, you can get a 2x bonus on a 3-year contract. So average deal size they're saying is $3,500, so $7,000 on a 3-year. These are the two contacts at the company. Carla's been in the business a very long time. A lot of people know her, and they know their stuff. So again, just tap them in. And Liz would have been here, but her flight was canceled coming into Miami. All right. So
Real quick,
yeah,
but
please.
I just think based on that SIM use case we just went through, it really speaks to my whole insourcing, outsourcing thought process, right? Can we do this? Can we do it effectively? Can we actually check all the boxes? Or should we be pushing it out? And SIM is a perfect example.
Anybody have any questions on anything they heard today? Look, guys, this is super, super exciting stuff, right? I mean, there is so much spend taking place in this particular area of the business, and there are so many, people being turned over, that they call it the Great Resignation through, everything that happened with COVID and the pandemic, and now coming out of it, I think there's a stat that like 40% of people are looking at, going to other jobs. Well, that creates opportunity, and it especially creates opportunity within the IT space, right? So, if you're a company that relies on a handful of IT people, and then all of a sudden, those IT people move on to a different job, what does that mean for your business? It means patching isn't being done. It means updates aren't being done. It means whoever's left is just trying to keep their head above the water by like servicing, employees in the company that have problems. So, this also, I wanted to kind of touch on this, right? For anyone in the room that's an IT person or MSP, like this doesn't have to be a competing product. This can be in tandem with what you're doing today, right? You can tap these guys in, you can have them focus on, I don't want to call it the grunt work, but nobody thinks that like patching and updating is sexy. I don't think anybody, necessarily thinks that's the best thing in the world, but like that work has to be done. And if you're not doing it, you're leaving vulnerability points within the business. So the other thing too is identifying breaches, when they happen, right? Like if you're a company and you're light on IT resources, you're not going to find these guys when they're in the network. And by the time you find out they're in there, it's that like, oh shit moment. Like, how long has this guy been in here? What have they been doing? What have they been looking at? Like, in another lunch and learn we did, a couple months back, this, whatever company was presenting said they went in there to start doing their assessment and realized that there was somebody in the network and they were like, unplug that, get that thing off right now, take it down because you're about to be ransomware. Like it's coming imminently. So that's the type of stuff you have to avoid. And by, tagging in these companies, you can do that, right? You can avoid it. So anyway, guys, we appreciate you coming today. I hope that you learned something. And, I would say, hey, if you got an opportunity, get the experts in. And dessert should be out any moment, so feel free to network and enjoy.